Her head and body were already separated, even though her neck looked intact. The paramedics immediately knew she was close to death. Clear spinal fluid was leaking from her ear, her arms and legs were weak and paralyzed. This was a sign of internal decapitation. She fell from a high rock climbing wall, causing her skull and spine to separate inside her body. Her head and body were only held together by skin and soft tissue. Luckily, she was still alive. But the rescue was nightmare-level hard. Even a small movement could kill her. The paramedics brought a scoop stretcher, they slid the two halves under her, locked them together, secured the straps. They placed head blocks on both sides of her head and taped them firmly in place. The steps looked simple, but no one dared to be careless. One small mistake could shift her head. Thankfully, the team worked perfectly together. The hardest part went smoothly. Next, they secured her body and rushed her to the hospital. Whether she would survive depended on her luck. Extreme sports require extra caution. He nailed his arm to a wooden frame. This man was ruthless. The paramedics were confused when they saw it. One nail by accident is understandable, but 4 nails? What was he thinking? His friend explained. The man had broken the safety on a nail gun. It went wild and fired non-stop, causing this. The nails were deeply stuck. The paramedics had no tools. The man was close to shock. They decided the only option was to cut the wooden frame and rush him to the hospital. First, they used bandages to secure the man's arm to the wood, but when his friend tried sawing the frame, the vibration made the man scream in pain. His friend panicked and did not dare to continue.
Sorry, man, are you okay?
He won't be okay until we get him to a hospital. Keep cutting.
I can't.
You're not amputating an arm. It's a piece of wood. Give it to me. Cover his eyes.
The paramedic picked up a power saw and started cutting without hesitation. She knew that compared to this pain, delaying treatment could lead to much worse results. Once the frame was cut free, they rushed the man to the hospital for treatment.
Oh, and you guys should be wearing eye protection.
The little girl suddenly rolled her eyes back. Her body began shaking hard. 2 paramedics could barely hold her. Earlier, a dance teacher called 911, saying something was wrong. The girl kept falling in class. She was usually talkative, but went silent. After her last fall, she never stood up again. The paramedics checked her. She responded slowly. Her breathing was weak. The cause was unknown. They put an oxygen mask on her first.
Sally did something really bad.
What did she do?
Sally drank this. She thought it was candy.
Oh my God.
60% alcohol.
The paramedics prepared an IV to ease her symptoms, but her vein burst. IV access failed. Her pupils were dilated. Her blood pressure was extremely high. This was clearly not just alcohol. Suddenly, she rolled her eyes back, began seizing violently. The paramedics restrained her, prepared a sedative to stop the seizures. Because her blood pressure was too high, they could only start the IV in her leg. Even after the sedative, the seizures continued. Her condition was critical, with possible signs of brain bleeding. They rushed her to the hospital at once. Hopefully, surgery could save her. For children's safety, they must be taught never to eat or drink unknown things. She flipped her car 180 degrees and fit it into this 1-car-wide ditch with 0 clearance. This female driver was something else. Most people could never do this. Even the firefighters were shocked by how she managed it. White smoke kept rising from under the car. It could catch fire or explode at any moment. But the space was so narrow, there was no easy way to work. The driver was hanging upside down inside the car, screaming in fear. Being upside down for too long made her dizzy and confused. Firefighters kept calming her down.
I can't stay in here. I can't!
Allison, I know that it's scary, but we know what we're doing. I just need you to give me a couple slow, deep breaths. In and out. In and out.
Suddenly, the bottom of the car caught fire. Firefighters quickly put it out with a fire extinguisher. Time was running out. They decided to use tools to cut the car apart. She panicked. This was her brand new car, bought with all her savings. But the firefighters had no choice. Soon, the bottom of the car was torn apart. They secured support points and prepared to split the car body and lift it. Then the woman smelled gasoline. There was no time to stop. With everyone working together, she was finally rescued. She will probably be scared of driving for a long time after this. A man was hanging on a streetlight over 10 meters high. He was already frozen like an ice statue. Firefighters climbed the ladder and found he still had a pulse. They quickly set up an aerial ladder to rescue him. One firefighter lay on the ladder and secured the man. Then they sawed off the hook on the streetlight.
Okay, easy.
The man was slowly lowered down. Paramedics checked him. He had a broken thigh bone. His shoulder was dislocated. He also had many bruises.
This guy's been through hell.
But surprisingly, even while half conscious, the man kept shouting banana.
Banana? Did he just say banana?
The firefighters were completely confused. This was enough to keep them talking for a whole year. How did this man end up hanging there? And what did banana mean? It's still a mystery. The driver ran a red light and caused a serious crash. Firefighters moved in to check the scene. The woman in the passenger seat only had a small nosebleed, but her father's condition looked very bad. A firefighter gave a signal to the paramedics. It seemed there was no need to rush in at first.
Guy wasn't wearing a seatbelt.
She said he didn't wear the seatbelt because his arm hurt. He never expected an accident like this. The experienced firefighters seemed to realize something.
I don't know, but that's why he took off his seatbelt. Is he going to be okay?
Hey, Sarah, we gotta get him out of there. He had a heart attack.
Daddy.
Hey, I need a backboard over here now!
Please, you gotta save him. Oh my God.
They quickly put the man on a stretcher. They started CPR right away. Traffic police said the crash happened only 5 minutes ago. There was still hope. Soon, the man regained weak breathing. It turned out he had a sudden heart attack, which made him look dead. Thanks to the paramedics noticing it in time, he got his life back. But after he recovers, no one knows if his injured heart can handle the huge compensation coming next. A woman got rear-ended, but she refused the man's offer to settle quietly. She called the firefighters and also reported to the police.
Oh, the only injury he has is the brain cells he killed with whatever he drank.
No way, dude. Totally sober. I told the lady, let's just exchange information.
But I know the police don't come to a minor accident unless you report an injury. That's right. The police are on their way now.
The man tried to dodge responsibility. He secretly hid aside and shoved a bag of flour into his mouth.
Hey, Sylvan.
That act won't save you.
That's crack.
Soon, he developed ventricular fibrillation. Luckily, the firefighters were nearby. They performed emergency treatment and his heartbeat returned. Then the firefighters injected him with medicine to stabilize his heart. The man slowly opened his eyes. Who knows if the woman regrets it now? She didn't get an easy payout and ended up dealing with a messy situation. Maybe she should have just accepted some compensation. A fire broke out inside a gun store. A scream suddenly rang out. Someone was hit by a bullet. Firefighters dropped low and crawled forward. They dragged the injured woman behind cover. She told them more people were trapped inside the shooting range. Bullets were flying everywhere. They could only move inch by inch. Using cover reached the range. Now came the hard part, getting everyone out. The captain had an idea. He pointed at a nearby fire door. One teammate got it. He grabbed a crowbar and pried the door off. They used the door as a shield, greatly lowering the risk of being shot. They moved slowly, shielding the injured. Bullets slammed into the door, clanging like death, knocking again and again. But under the firefighters' cover, death stayed away. Everyone trapped was rescued. The captain ordered an immediate retreat. Firefighters inside pulled out fast, while crews outside took over the fire. A heart-pounding rescue was completed successfully.